Hello there, and welcome, wherever you are in the world, whatever time of day or night it may be. I'm grateful you've chosen to spend these quiet moments together. Perhaps you are listening while lying in bed, waiting for sleep to arrive. Perhaps the sun has just set outside your window, or maybe the first light of dawn is spilling across your room. I often like to ask, where are you listening from? And what hour has found you here? You are not alone. Scattered across the globe are others just like you, seekers of knowledge and mystery, who gather here for calm voices and timeless questions. Before we begin, I'll extend only the softest invitation. If you find peace in these explorations, if curiosity carries you through the hours or gently lulls you toward rest, you might consider subscribing or even leaving a note of where you're listening from. Many voices, many corners of the earth, joining into one quiet circle. There is no pressure, only an open door, always waiting. And now, let us step into the question itself. Every breath you take, every cloud that passes above, every blue horizon that has ever stretched before your eyes, all of it is the atmosphere, an invisible shield cradling the earth. Science describes it in layers: troposphere, stratosphere, mesosphere, thermosphere, exosphere, names like veils stacked upon one another, protecting, warming, carrying sound and life. Without it, we would not exist. Yet tonight, or this morning, or whenever your listening finds you, I want you to imagine something stranger. Imagine if Earth had never carried an atmosphere at all. Imagine an Earth with oceans boiling into nothing, a sky as black as the void of space, the sun burning unfiltered, and the silence so absolute that even a whisper could not exist. A naked, airless world, alien and unrecognizable. Mainstream science assures us that the atmosphere is essential. It is the breath of worlds, the very condition for life itself. But what if this comfort we take for granted had never formed? What if our home planet was stripped of its air, left exposed to the raw edge of the cosmos? That is the journey ahead, to walk through an alternate Earth, one sculpted not by gentle winds and clouds, but by the absence of all breath. We will wander its landscapes, peer at its seas, and wonder whether life, or something like it, could ever survive there. Together, we will drift between knowledge and speculation, between certainty and mystery. And perhaps, as we explore this silent Earth that might have been, we will come to cherish even more the fragile gift of the air around us now. The Earth we know, the one that cradles us gently in its arms, is not defined only by mountains and oceans, but by something far more subtle, an invisible ocean of air. When you step outside and look at the horizon, you might think you are seeing space stretch infinitely away, but in truth, what you see is a fragile cocoon, just a few dozen kilometers thick, holding back the void. It is this thin veil of atmosphere that makes everything possible. Mainstream science explains it with precision. Nitrogen making up nearly 80%, oxygen composing 20%, and slivers of argon, carbon dioxide, and noble gases woven into the mixture. This balance is no accident. It is the legacy of billions of years of volcanic eruptions, photosynthesis, asteroid impacts, and shifting chemistry. Yet when you inhale, you rarely think of that heritage. You simply breathe, trusting that the air will be there. It has always been there, but it might not have been. To understand why atmospheres matter, it helps to look beyond Earth. Mars, once wet and blue, lost most of its air to the sun's relentless wind. Now its sky is thin, its rivers dry, its voice a whisper in the solar system. Venus, by contrast, kept its atmosphere, but let it thicken into a suffocating shroud, 90 times denser than ours. Hot enough to melt lead, its clouds laced with acid. Both are worlds sculpted by air, or the lack of it. Both remind us how fragile this balance is. And then there is Titan, Saturn's largest moon. Beneath its golden haze, rivers of methane carve valleys, and rains fall in cycles eerily familiar. Though the fluid is not water, but hydrocarbons, its thick atmosphere, rich in nitrogen, makes it strangely Earth-like. Despite the distance of 1 billion kilometers, Titan whispers a secret, that atmospheres are not just shells, but architects of landscapes. On Earth too, The atmosphere is an artist. It paints sunsets in crimson and violet, scatters blue light across the day, and layers the horizon in soft gradations. Without it, the sky would be black even at noon, the sun a white furnace unshielded, the stars pricking coldly through daylight. The world would look like the moon, silent, stark, and utterly alien. But the atmosphere is not only a painter, it is also a shield. High above, in the stratosphere, lies ozone, filtering ultraviolet rays that would burn skin and blind eyes. Higher still, particles collide in the thermosphere, creating auroras, curtains of green and red shimmering like cosmic breath. Each layer has a role, like parts of a symphony: troposphere with its weather, stratosphere with its shields, mesosphere with its fiery meteors burning to dust, thermosphere glowing with auroras, exosphere dissolving into space. Life itself is woven into this fabric. Birds ride thermals, seeds scatter on winds, clouds form and break in endless cycles that water the earth. Human lungs, animal hearts, the silent respiration of trees, all of it leans on the air. It is not merely background, it is the stage upon which life performs. And yet, the atmosphere is more than a scientific necessity, it is an emotional one. Imagine lying in a field at dusk, feeling the cool air brush your skin. Imagine a storm rolling in, thunder muffled by layers of humidity. Imagine dawn, the first inhale of a morning that smells of rain. These sensations are gifts of the atmosphere, moments that connect you to the living planet. If it vanished, if Earth had no air at all, those gifts would collapse in an instant. Oceans would begin to boil away, unpressurized. Flames could not burn, sound would not travel, breathing would not be possible, because there would be nothing to inhale. It would not be Earth as we know it. It would be a hollow echo of itself, barren and alien. In mainstream science, the atmosphere is defined in terms of chemistry and physics, but in speculation, it becomes something more, a fragile guardian. It is not guaranteed. It is a cosmic accident, one that could have failed, one that may fail again. Other planets show us the possibilities, scorched like Mercury, suffocated like Venus, desiccated like Mars. In each case, the difference between a living world and a dead one is broken. And so we ask, what makes air stay? Why does one planet keep its sky while another loses it to the winds of space? The answer lies in gravity, in magnetism, in the long, slow dance between star and planet. But even then, the story is not simple. Earth's magnetic field helps shield it, yes, but there are weaknesses, leaks where particles escape into the void. Over millions of years, even our air thins, balanced only by volcanoes and biological cycles that return what is lost. When you think of the atmosphere, imagine it not as permanent, but as temporary. A visitor, a fragile veil, sustained by constant work. Without it, the Earth would be a silent stone orbiting the sun, no different than countless other barren rocks scattered across the galaxy. And yet, here it is, the breath of worlds, invisible yet essential, a cradle for oceans, for forests, for human, whispers in the dark. Perhaps, in the quiet of this moment, you might take one long inhale and remember that this air is a gift, fragile, cosmic, and irreplaceable. If you imagine the Earth without its atmosphere, the silence is the first thing that strikes you. Not the absence of wind, not the stillness of trees, but the absolute impossibility of sound itself. Sound needs air to travel without molecules colliding. No voice could echo, no thunder could roll, no laughter could rise from the ground. The Earth would become a place of gestures only, a silent film played across the cosmos. And yet, the atmosphere is not only a messenger of sound, but also of time. It carries the cycle of seasons, spreading warmth and cold in great tides across the planet. Winds cross oceans, pulling monsoons toward continents, carrying rains that have shaped civilizations. Without air, there is no weather, no climate, only naked rock under a burning star. The gentle rhythm that turns deserts to oases, grasslands to forests, would never exist. Humanity itself, tied so deeply to harvest and sky, would have had no anchor. Consider, too, how the atmosphere guards us from space itself. Every shooting star you have ever wished upon is a tiny stone burning in the mesosphere, ignited by friction with molecules too small to see. Without this shield, Earth would be pummeled relentlessly. Micrometeorites, asteroids, fragments of comets, all would strike unfiltered, grinding the surface into scars. Our atmosphere is not only a painter of sunsets, it is a gatekeeper against chaos. Venus shows what happens when that gatekeeper grows too heavy. Its thick veil locks in heat so effectively that the surface glows like an oven, its air pressing with 90 times the weight of ours. Stand there and you would be crushed, burned and poisoned in a single breath. Mars shows the opposite, an atmosphere too thin, lost to solar winds over eons. Once it had rivers, lakes, even seas, but with the air gone, the water escaped, the warmth fled, and the world froze into silence. Earth sits between these fates, balanced on a knife's edge of chance. And then consider the role of air as a lens. The blue sky is not merely color, it is Rayleigh scattering, the bending of light across molecules, softening the sun's harsh brilliance into something bearable, something beautiful. Without air, the sun would blaze white and sharp, painful to look upon, its edges too crisp, its glare merciless. Stars would burn like diamonds even at midday, dazzling but cold. The moon would hang, stark and bright, a mirror unfiltered by haze. The familiar comfort of day and night would be replaced with something harsher, lonelier, a constant reminder of the void. Mainstream science reminds us that even our bodies are designed for this gift. Blood boils at low pressures. Lungs collapse without resistance. The atmosphere wraps us not only in protection, but in definition. Take it away, and life as we know it is not only endangered, it is impossible. But speculation pushes further. Could life adapt in a world without air? Could creatures evolve not to breathe, but to draw sustenance from rock, from radiation, from deep chemical exchanges beneath the crust? We know that on Earth today, extremophiles thrive in boiling vents, in frozen lakes, in acidic pools. Some survive without oxygen at all. Perhaps in a truly airless Earth, life would retreat underground, forming a hidden biosphere, shielded from the vacuum by layers of stone. It would not be a world of forests and birds, but of microbes and slow, patient chemistry. And what of humanity, if it had somehow emerged on such a planet? We might imagine cities sealed beneath domes, air imported from subterranean caverns or generated from machines. Architecture would not stretch into the open sky, but burrow downward into protective shells. Myths would speak not of gods in the heavens, but of eternal darkness pressing above, of a universe that offered no breath. Perhaps the very concept of sky would not exist, only the void, a thing to be feared, not admired. The atmosphere, then, is not just a scientific layer, it is a cultural one. It gave rise to gods of wind and storm, to rituals for rain, to poems about breezes and clouds. Strip it away, and human imagination itself would change. No child would fly a kite, no lover would speak of the scent of spring air, no civilization would pray for rain. The absence of air is the absence of story. Yet here we are, beneath this fragile blanket, rarely pausing to notice it. Every breath you take is a quiet miracle. Every breeze, a reminder that Earth chose, somehow, to hold on to its gift when so many other worlds let theirs go. The next time you see clouds drifting, remember that they are part of the same shield that keeps oceans in their basins and stars hidden by day. In mainstream certainty, the atmosphere is chemistry and physics, measurable, charted, explained. In speculation, it becomes something far greater, the breadth of worlds, the delicate difference between life and lifelessness. It is fragile, contingent, never guaranteed, and without it, Earth would be an alien stone, silent, dark, and unrecognizable. As we move onward, Let us imagine what that alien Earth might look like, stripped of its air, landscapes laid bare to the sun, oceans fading into vapor, silence echoing across stone plains. A familiar world, and yet not ours. Imagine standing on Earth with no atmosphere above you. The first shock is the sky. At noon, instead of a dome of gentle blue, the heavens would be black, star-filled, infinite. The sun would blaze, small and white, unfiltered, glaring like a furnace set against velvet darkness. It would cast no halos, no soft glow, only razor-sharp light, cruel and unblinking. Every star, even those that today hide until nightfall, would shine all at once, etched against the void. It would feel less like Earth and more like walking on the moon. The silence would be unbearable. On Earth today, sound is constant. Winds rustle leaves, rivers murmur. Even stillness is full of subtle tones. Without air, there would be nothing. Your own footsteps would not echo. Even your breath, if it could exist, would make no sound. The world would be mute, a planet of gestures and sight alone. And what sights it would show! Without air to scatter light, shadows would be stark, etched as if painted in ink. Daylight would be brutal, every surface scorched by radiation. Nights would be absolute, temperatures plummeting without a blanket of gas to hold the heat. The landscape would swing violently between furnace and freezer, extremes unknown on the Earth we know. The oceans, too, would be lost. Deprived of pressure, water would boil and escape, turning seas into vapor that flees into space. What remained of rivers would hiss and vanish, leaving only dry scars across the continents. Lakes would empty into thinness, their beds cracking and fracturing. In time, even the deep ocean trenches would yield, surrendering their waters to the void. What once was blue would fade to gray and brown. Earth would be a desert, not of sand, but of naked stone. Mountains would stand sharper, without the slow erosion of wind. On the Earth we inhabit, air wears peaks down, carves valleys, polishes ridges. But on a bare Earth, no such sculpture would exist. Cliffs would remain jagged, dust would linger unmoved. The surface would resemble the moon's, sharp, unforgiving, untouched by the soft hand of weather. Volcanic eruptions would still come, throwing molten rocks skyward, but the fountains would fall in silence, their ash not drifting on currents, but raining down straight and heavy. No plume, no haze, just scar upon scar. Dust itself would behave differently, without air to carry it. There would be no storms, no clouds of sand sweeping across deserts. Instead, each grain lifted by an impact would arc in perfect silence, following ballistic curves before settling once again. The planet would be still, unnervingly still, as though frozen in time. And yet, this bare Earth would not be featureless. Sunlight would strike surfaces with ruthless efficiency, leaching rocks in hours, baking plains until they fractured. At night, the cold would drive frost to creep from the soil, then vanish with morning's return. The planet would crack, flake, and splinter, its crust constantly breaking under violent thermal shifts. Landscapes would not flow as ours do with rivers and winds. They would shatter, collapse, and crumble in silence. Think of deserts today, sculpted by aeolian forces, dunes flowing like liquid under persistent breezes. Now imagine those same sands, still and frozen, lying unmoved for millennia. No dunes, no shifting waves of grit, just inert seas of dust. Without air, time itself would feel locked. Change would come only from impacts. The strike of a meteorite, the collapse of a cliff weakened by extremes. It would be a planet marked by sudden violence, not gradual erosion. Yet, there is a strange beauty in it. The black sky at noon would show galaxies invisible to us now. The Milky Way, sprawling, luminous, unbroken by haze. The planets would gleam like jewels. Venus, a silver shard, Jupiter striped and immense, Saturn with its rings sharp as blades. On an airless Earth, the cosmos would always be present, unavoidable, overwhelming. There would be no separation between ground and heavens, only a constant reminder of the vastness above. This beauty, however, would be lethal. Radiation would pour unchecked, stripping surfaces, mutating any life that dared cling to existence. The soil would bleach, rocks would redden with iron exposed, ice at the poles would vaporize into nothing. The greenhouse balance that today keeps Earth gentle would vanish, leaving extremes too hostile for any familiar form of life. And so, the landscapes of a bare Earth would resemble a strange mix of what we see on the Moon and Mars. Jagged, scarred, dusted with silence. The grandeur of mountains unmoved by time, the harshness of deserts without wind, the brilliance of a sky filled with stars, a world recognizable in outline but alien in detail, a mirror of what Earth could have been if chance had tilted another way. Perhaps the most haunting realization is this: all the features we take for granted, clouds, rivers, erosion, weather, are not permanent. They are accidents of air. Without atmosphere, Earth loses its softness. What remains is the skeleton of a planet, stripped bare, etched against the infinite night. And yet, in this vision of silence and stillness, we also see the truth of how extraordinary our living Earth really is. If oceans are the heart of Earth, then without atmosphere, the heart would falter and vanish. Water does not simply sit still without pressure, it escapes. In the first moments of an airless Earth, waves would tremble into vapor, boiling at temperatures far lower than we know. Seas would foam into clouds that are not clouds, for with no sky to hold them, the vapor would surge upward and scatter into space. Imagine the Atlantic vanishing, the Pacific unraveling, the Indian Ocean hissing away into nothingness. Within centuries, perhaps only decades, Earth's surface would be dry, its basins hollow scars etched across continents. What remains after the seas are gone is a planet of salt flats, desiccated seabeds, and fractured ridges. Coral reefs, once alive with colors, would bleach into brittle skeletons. Shores would recede infinitely until there were none. The rhythms of tides, the pull of the moon on waters, would end. No waves, no surf, no music of water meeting land, just stillness. The Earth would become a desert in totality, one vast crust exposed to cosmic glare. Geology, too, would change its face. Today, wind and water shape mountains and canyons, smoothing edges, carving valleys, grinding stone into soil. But on an Earth without air, erosion halts. Mountains remain jagged, canyons remain raw, volcanoes erupt in silence, their ash falling back in straight paths, not carried by jet streams. Floodplains dry into cracked mosaics. What little change occurs comes from within, from tectonic plates grinding, thrusting ridges skyward, collapsing cliffs into rubble. Without air, the surface is a battlefield of stone against stone. Think of the Grand Canyon, its beauty sculpted by the slow insistence of the Colorado River, rains, winds, and floods. In a bare Earth, there would be no such patient artistry. The canyon might exist, but as a sharp tear, an open wound in the crust. Its walls would not smooth, its edges would not soften. The land would seem frozen in violence, as though creation had begun but never finished. Impact craters would multiply across this landscape. Without atmosphere, every meteor, from pebble to mountain, would strike unimpeded. Earth would wear a face of scars, pocked and cratered like the moon. Over eons, the surface would become a record of collisions, each crater a reminder of cosmic vulnerability. The shield of air that burns meteors before they touch the ground would be gone. The sky would no longer protect, it would punish. The colors of this bare Earth would also unsettle. Today, air scatters light, gifting us soft blues, gentle sunsets, and misty dawns. Without it, colors vanish. Rocks glare in whites and grays. Sands deepen to rust, surfaces burn with iron's redness under the sun's raw light, shadows cut like blades. There is no haze to soften distance. Mountains miles away would appear stark and sharp, as if you could reach out and touch them. The world would feel flat, yet infinite, stripped of atmosphere's illusion of depth. And at night, temperatures plummet. Without a blanket of greenhouse gases, heat escapes freely into the void. The ground chills until frost forms, only to vanish again under daylight's heat. This daily cycle of freeze and burn shatters stone, splitting it, cracking it, grinding it into powder. The planet itself becomes its own weather, geology serving as the agent of change. Not rain, not wind, not rivers, but relentless expansion and contraction, breaking the skin of Earth apart. Mars shows us a fragment of this story. Its valleys, like valles marineris cut deep across its face, remain raw, jagged, and silent. Dust lies still until storms briefly stir it, but never with the vigor of Earth's winds. The moon shows another reflection, plains of dust unmoved for millions of years, craters untouched by erosion. Both worlds whisper of what Earth might have looked like had air never gathered, worlds of silence, stasis, and scars. And yet, even in imagining this bleakness, one finds a strange magnificence. To stand beneath a black sky at noon and see galaxies stretching unbroken, to look upon mountains sharper than any knife, to walk through craters preserved like frozen explosions, such sights would be breathtaking, though deadly. It would be a sublime beauty, an Earth more alien than home. This thought experiment reminds us of fragility. Our atmosphere, so easily forgotten, is what makes rivers flow, what softens mountains, what allows forests and deserts to dance with change. Strip it away, and Earth is still Earth, the same rock, the same mass, but transformed utterly, a world familiar in outline, but alien in detail, as though the planet had put on another mask. And so, when we imagine this bare Earth, we glimpse not only what could have been, but what might still be if the balance were ever lost. For air is not eternal. It can be stripped, as Mars shows us. It can turn oppressive, as Venus warns. The landscapes we cherish, rivers, valleys, gentle skies, are all temporary. As we leave this vision of stone and silence, the next question calls, in such a world, without air, without protection, what of the sun? What would happen when its raw fury fell upon this fragile planet, without shield or mercy? Imagine the Earth stripped bare, no atmosphere to shield it, no blanket of gases to filter the sun's relentless blaze. The star that sustains us today would become a tyrant. Its light, instead of scattering into the gentle blue of the sky, would strike directly, sharp as a blade. Standing on such a world, you would see the sun as an unblinking furnace, white and furious, glaring from the void. There would be no dawns tinged with color, no evenings painted red, only the merciless brilliance of raw starlight, burning every surface it touched. Our atmosphere softens sunlight, bending and diffusing it, allowing shadows to blur and skies to glow. Without it, sun's rays arrive unbroken, their energy concentrated. Rocks under this glare would heat to blistering extremes, their surfaces cracking and flaking in hours. Darker soils would become ovens, absorbing every photon, radiating heat that could melt metals. Daytime on a bare Earth would feel like standing under a magnifying glass, with no mercy, no shade, no shelter. And yet, the greater threat lies not in the heat we can feel, but in the invisible daggers we cannot. Ultraviolet light, normally filtered by ozone, would pour down unrestrained, searing skin in seconds, boiling the delicate chemistry of life. Cosmic rays, high-energy particles from the sun and distant stars would strike directly, penetrating flesh, shattering DNA, leaving only silence in their wake. The magnetosphere might still deflect some charged particles, but without air, the shield is incomplete. Radiation would pierce through like arrows through cloth. Look at Mercury, the world closest to our sun. With almost no atmosphere, it endures scorching heat by day, climbing above 400 degrees C and plunges below 170 degrees C at night. Its surface bakes under direct radiation, unprotected, a cracked wasteland of rock and dust. That is the destiny an airless Earth would share, a place where no equilibrium holds, where temperatures swing with ruthless rhythm, where the sun rules absolute. Life, as we know it, would not survive a single day. Skin would blister, Blood would boil at the low pressures. Eyes would cloud in ultraviolet glare. Even machines would falter. Electronics fried by cosmic rays. Metals weakened by violent heating and cooling. The surface of Earth would become a graveyard of broken stones and failed attempts at endurance. But speculation invites us to ask, could anything survive this cruelty? Perhaps deep beneath the ground, shielded by meters of rock, microbes might cling to life, feeding on chemical energy. Subterranean reservoirs might remain warm, hidden from the sun's wrath. These pockets would be fragile, tiny sanctuaries in an otherwise sterilized world. On the surface, however, nothing familiar would last. Forests would ignite into vapor, oceans into steam, soil into dust, and yet paradoxically, the sun's rage would also reveal a strange beauty. With no air to scatter light, no haze to dim the horizon, shadows would stretch sharp and absolute. Sky would blaze with stars even in daylight, while the sun itself hovered like a jewel too bright to look at. Landscapes would glow with heat, fractured cliffs shimmering in the furnace of noon. The planet would be deadly, but also sublime, a world sculpted by fire and silence. Mainstream science assures us that without an atmosphere, this radiation would sterilize the planet completely. But speculation allows us to wonder, might there be forms of life that thrive on such extremes? On Earth today, radiation-resistant microbes like Deinococcus radiodurans endure doses hundreds of times stronger than humans can bear. Could a lineage of such beings, given millions of years, adapt to bask in ultraviolet floods? Could evolution find a way to weave survival from light that destroys? It is unlikely, but not impossible. For now, we know that air is the shield that makes our world livable. Strip it away, and the sun becomes not a nurturer, but an executioner. Its warmth, once a comfort, turns lethal. Its light, once a painter of skies, becomes a weapon. Earth would no longer be the cradle of life, but a furnace of stone and silence. And still, this bare earth would not only endure destruction, it would wear it visibly. Rocks bleached by radiation would glow pale, sands reddened by iron's oxidation would deepen in hue. Surfaces polished by extremes would glisten like glass. The planet itself would become a canvas of scars painted by solar fury. As you imagine this world, remember the balance we now live in. Our atmosphere is not permanent. It is a temporary guardian. The sun has always had the power to strip, to burn, to sterilize. We are shielded only by fragile veils of gas, easily lost, easily altered. Without them, our Earth is no sanctuary. It is Mercury's twin, orbiting in silence, scorched by fire, frozen by night. When night falls on an airless Earth, the violence of the sun does not fade into comfort. Instead, the absence of atmosphere invites a second punishment, the rapid escape of heat into space. There is no air to hold warmth, no greenhouse gases to store energy, no cloud cover to slow the bleeding of light. Surfaces that roasted under the day's blaze now plummet into cold that bites sharper than any polar winter. Stone fractures, metals contract, soils freeze into brittle shards. The planet becomes a place of violent rhythm, seared by day, shattered by night, repeating endlessly. On Earth today, the atmosphere smooths extremes. The difference between day and night rarely spans more than a few dozen degrees. But imagine temperatures soaring past 400 Becquerel at noon, then plunging below 70 by midnight. As they do on Mercury, the ground itself becomes an accomplice to destruction. Expansion by heat and contraction by cold splits. Cliffs pulverizes rock and grinds landscapes into dust. With no winds to carry it, the dust lingers where it falls, painting the ground with powdery blankets that tell the story of endless destruction. The moon offers another glimpse of this cruelty. Its surface, unprotected, endures the same punishing cycle. Lunar rocks are brittle from centuries of thermal assault, their surfaces etched with fractures. Astronauts once walked there, their suits insulated against heat and cold. But even those brief visits revealed a truth. This is not a world that welcomes life. It is a furnace and a freezer in alternating measure. a reminder of what Earth would become without its fragile shield. And then there is the radiation. Day or night, cosmic rays never rest. On an Earth without air, even in the deepest midnight, the planet would be bombarded by high-energy particles that slice invisibly through stone and bone. Electronics would corrode under this constant assault. Cells, if they dared exist, would mutate until collapse. In such an environment, biology, as we know it, cannot stand. Yet speculation invites us to imagine how survival might adapt. Could underground oceans remain liquid, warmed by geothermal heat, deep below the surface, shielded from solar glare and cosmic storms? Reservoirs of warmth might persist. Within them, microbial life could endure, evolving in darkness, feeding on minerals rather than sunlight. Perhaps entire ecosystems could hide there, unseen, surviving not because of the sun, but in spite of it. Humans, if they were ever to attempt life on such a planet, would need to follow similar strategies. Cities would burrow beneath the crust, shelters lined with rock to absorb radiation. Energy might come from geothermal vents, nuclear reactors, or captured solar light, funneled underground. Agriculture would exist only in sealed chambers, nurtured by artificial air. The surface would be abandoned to extremes, visited rarely, as explorers step out only in the brief windows between deadly heat and freezing collapse. Life would not be impossible, but it would be radically different, a constant fight against the sun's tyranny. Consider also the strange havens this Earth might offer. In polar shadows where sunlight never reaches, ice might cling, frozen for eternity. In deep craters, shielded from both day and night, temperatures might stabilize, offering oases of relative calm. These places, rare and precious, could become sanctuaries, perhaps the only regions where explorers might dare to surface. The geography of survival would be defined not by fertile valleys or gentle climates, but by absence, the absence of heat, of light, of exposure. And what of the sky? In daylight, the sun would dominate, harsh and unfiltered. At night, the stars would blaze in overwhelming clarity, galaxies sprawling unbroken by haze. The Milky Way would arch in luminous rivers, planets shining brighter than any we have ever seen. It would be beautiful, unbearably so, yet it would also be a beauty untouchable, for to stand beneath it would be to surrender to radiation, to cold, to silence. Science explains with certainty that this scenario would sterilize Earth's surface within days, yet speculation offers a haunting thought. Perhaps, over millions of years, life might adapt, not by resisting the sun, but by embracing it. Could there be beings that feed on radiation itself, transforming what we see as destruction into sustenance? Already, extremophiles on Earth endure doses of radiation hundreds of times higher than humans. Perhaps, in time, a lineage might emerge that thrives on what annihilates us, a paradox of survival born from cruelty. Still, for humanity as we know it, the lesson is simple. The sun without atmosphere is not a friend. It is both too much and too little, giving fire in the day and frost at night, neither of which we can endure. Our world thrives only because of the thin, fragile veil that tempers extremes. Without it, the sun becomes not the giver of life, but the destroyer. As we leave this vision, let us carry the weight of its reminder. The air above you, invisible and taken for granted, is the reason rivers flow, forests bloom, and mornings arrive gently instead of violently. The next time you see the sun rise, remember, it is not the star itself that offers mercy, but the shield of gases that soften its fire. And so we turn now from the sky to the sea, or rather to the seas that would not remain. For if the atmosphere is gone, water too cannot stay. Oceans vanish, rivers boil, and Earth becomes a skeleton of stone. The question is not only how heat reshapes the land, but how the loss of air steals away the waters of the world. Close your eyes and picture the world's oceans. Endless horizons of blue waves rolling under sunlight, tides breathing in rhythm with the moon. Now remove the atmosphere. Instantly, this beauty shatters. Water without pressure cannot remain liquid. It begins to boil away, even at temperatures that feel cold to us. The seas hiss and foam, their molecules leaping skyward, not to form clouds, but to flee into space. Earth's heartbeats, its oceans, would vanish in silence. Within hours, the surface would transform, shallow seas would lift into vapor, racing away under the raw blaze of the sun. Lakes would evaporate, their beds cracking in jagged mosaics. Rivers would shrivel into thin, gleaming threads before disappearing entirely. Coastlines, those delicate borders between land and water that cradle cities and cultures, would retreat until there was no sea to meet the shore. At first, the process might look like a storm, unlike any other. Vast plumes of vapor would surge upward, not bound into clouds, but spreading outward into the void. From space, Earth would look like it was exhaling its breath all at once, a blue planet turning pale. But unlike storms, there would be no return. Once gone, the water could not fall back. There is no sky, no pressure, no air to hold it close. Mainstream science tells us that without atmosphere, liquid water cannot exist. The triple point of water, the balance where solid, liquid, and vapor can coexist, depends on pressure. Take that pressure away, and liquid becomes impossible. Ice may sublimate directly into gas. Oceans, lakes, even glaciers surrender to the void. Within centuries, Earth would lose nearly all of its surface water, leaving behind dry basins, salt flats, and the skeletons of coral reefs turned to dust. The Great Pacific, once vast and deep, would become a scar, its floor cracked and fractured. The Atlantic would follow, exposing mountain ridges now hidden beneath waves. Fish and whales would have no refuge. Marine ecosystems would collapse before the water even fully escaped. Earth, long called the Blue Planet, would be stripped to browns, grays, and reds, a desert world orbiting beneath a black sky. Imagine walking across a vanished seabed. You would see ridges once hidden, volcanic vents exposed, canyons carved by currents now standing naked in silence. Skeletons of ancient reefs would crumble underfoot. In some places, salt crusts would shimmer, catching sunlight like mirrors. In others, mud would crack into endless patterns, fractured mosaics of what once was alive. Without waves, without currents, the stillness would feel eerie, a world emptied of motion. But what of the deep? Could Earth hide reservoirs beyond the sun's reach? Some scientists believe that water is stored in minerals deep within the mantle, bound into rock itself. These hidden vaults, locked kilometers beneath, might endure, protected from the vacuum, but they would never surface again. They would remain trapped, inaccessible, silent. Earth's surface would still be dry, barren, lifeless. Speculation invites another haunting image. What if a thin veil of ice lingered at the poles, cold enough to resist complete sublimation? For a time, glacial caps might cling, shining under the sun, but even they would slowly vanish, molecule by molecule, stolen by space. Nothing on the surface could resist the combined pull of heat and emptiness. Consider how different human history would have been without oceans. Our species learned to fish, to sail, to cross horizons. Civilizations rose on riverbanks, expanded along coasts, traded across seas, take away the waters, and history itself evaporates. There would be no maritime empires, no myths of sea serpents, no poems about tides. Humanity, if it survived at all, would be landlocked, bound to deserts, never gazing upon horizons of blue. And the ecosystems. Coral reefs gone, plankton gone, oxygen production plummeting. Today, much of Earth's breathable oxygen comes not from forests, but from phytoplankton in the sea. Without them, even if an atmosphere somehow lingered, air would become thin, unbalanced, the chain of life would collapse from the bottom upward. What remains in this vision is haunting, a planet once alive with water, now a hollow shell. Earth would resemble Mars, where dried riverbeds and deltas hint at vanished seas. It would mirror the moon's lifeless plains, where no liquid ever flowed. It would look like memory carved in stone, a place where water once danced, but now survives only in ghostly patterns. The absence of oceans reshapes not just biology but geology itself. With no tides to grind shorelines, coasts become sharp. With no waves to erode cliffs, landscapes remain raw. With no rain, erosion halts, soils vanish, and deserts spread unchecked. Weathering slows until it stops. The Earth becomes a time capsule of rock, unchanged except for impacts from the heavens. From space, such a planet would not be mistaken for ours. The signature blue would vanish. No swirling white clouds, no shimmering seas, no storms spiraling across continents. Instead, Earth would appear gray-brown, cratered, silent. A world with no breath, no water, no life. The transformation would be so absolute that an alien traveler might never guess it had once been alive. This vision of loss reminds us, water is not guaranteed. It depends on pressure, on temperature, on delicate balances. Without atmosphere, oceans are fleeting, rivers are illusions, lakes are impossible. The cradle of life itself would vanish into space, leaving behind only scars and memories. And yet, even in imagining this devastation, beauty remains. The exposed seabeds would reveal landscapes humans have never seen. Mountain ranges taller than the Himalayas, valleys deeper than the Grand Canyon, trenches vast enough to swallow continents. The Earth, stripped bare, would display secrets once hidden beneath waves. It would be breathtaking, though deadly. As we linger in this thought, one truth grows clear. Our oceans are alive because our sky is alive. Strip away the air, and you strip away the seas. The atmosphere is not just a shield above. It is the hand that holds the waters close. The vanishing of Earth's waters would not be a single dramatic event, but a process unfolding in stages, slow unraveling of the planet's blue identity. Within hours, shallow lakes and rivers would vanish, boiling away into vapor that flees to space. Within days, the upper layers of the oceans would begin to lift, breaking into steam under the raw blaze of the sun. Within centuries, entire basins would lie empty, cracked and silent, and within a few million years, even the deepest seas would surrender, leaving behind a planet of bare rock and salt-stained plains. The timeline of loss is merciless. First would go the coasts, beaches drying into barren flats, tides ceasing as water thins. Then the continental shelves would emerge, exposing hidden landscapes, strange fossils, and lost sediments that once lay drowned in shadow. As oceans retreat, trenches and ridges would rise to view. Mountain chains, taller than any on land, now revealed in stark silence. The Pacific, with its vast depths, would take longest, but even it would collapse, molecule by molecule, into nothingness. Without oceans, Earth's climate is undone. Today, the seas act as regulators, absorbing heat, redistributing energy through currents. They temper winters, cool summers, and drive weather systems. Take them away, and the planet becomes unbalanced. Land would swing to extremes, baking under the sun, freezing at night. Rain would cease, evaporation gone, clouds impossible. The hydrologic cycle, the dance of rain and river, storm and snow, would end. A desert, not of sand, but of silence, would spread across every horizon. Geology, too, would alter its rhythm. River valleys, once carved by flowing water, would remain as scars, frozen in time. Erosion, slowed without rain and waves, would halt. The great canyons of the world would stand unchanging for eons. Their edges never soften. Salt flats would shimmer in the sun, relics of vanished seas. Entire continents would be reshaped, not by erosion, but by absence. A silence so complete that even time would feel slower. And yet, not all water would be lost. Science tells us that vast reservoirs may be locked deep in Earth's mantle, trapped in minerals far below the crust. These hidden oceans, invisible and accessible, might endure. They would not surface, would not flow, would not save the world above, but they would remain. like whispers of the planet's former self, buried too deep for the vacuum to touch. Earth would still carry water, but only in secret. Speculation invites us to imagine survivors. Could pockets of ice linger in shadows, cold enough to resist sublimation? Perhaps in polar craters, shielded from sun and heat, frost might cling for millions of years. But even this would be fleeting. Space is patient, molecule by molecule. The vacuum wins. Eventually, nothing would remain. And what of life? With oceans gone, the majority of species would collapse instantly. Marine ecosystems, oxygen production, food chains, all erased. Yet in the deepest crust, shielded by stone, microbes might endure. Subterranean aquifers, warmed by geothermal heat, could remain liquid. Life here would shrink into a hidden kingdom, feeding on minerals and darkness, never touching the surface again. The richness of seas would be gone, but the spark of life might flicker on, unseen. Humanity in such a world would face devastation. Civilizations depend on water for survival, not just drinking, but agriculture, trade, energy, culture. Entire histories rose along rivers, across seas, along coasts. Without oceans, there would be no trade winds, no fisheries, no storms to bring rain inland. Agriculture would collapse. Cities would wither, even if humans could adapt technologically. Earth would never again be a natural home. It would become a tomb of salt and dust. From space, its transformation would be unmistakable. The blue marble, so familiar, would fade. Gone would be the swirl of clouds, the shimmer of seas. In their place, a barren globe of ochre and gray, cratered and cracked, resembling Mars more than itself. The planet would be unrecognizable, a ghost of what it once was. Any traveler, looking upon it, might never guess that it had once carried whales and storms and oceans deep enough to hide mountain ranges. And yet, even in this devastation, there would be revelations. With seas gone, landscapes hidden for billions of years would emerge. Ridges taller than the Andes, canyons deeper than the Grand Canyon, volcanic scars stretching thousands of kilometers. All revealed at last. The Earth, stripped bare, would display its hidden architecture, its skeleton laid open to the sky. It would be terrible, but also breathtaking. This thought experiment leaves us with a final truth. Water and air are not separate gifts, they are partners. Without atmosphere, water cannot remain. Without water, life cannot thrive. Earth's oceans exist only because the sky holds them close. Strip away one and the other follows. And so, as we leave this vision of a dry Earth, we turn our gaze upward once more. What becomes of the sky itself when air is gone? No clouds, no blue dome, no veil to soften the cosmos. The heavens would change as completely as the seas, transforming our most familiar sight into something alien. Next, we step into that vision to imagine a sky without air, a night without stars hidden, a world where the heavens are stripped bare to the void. Lift your eyes to the heavens we know today. A soft blue dome stretches above, punctuated by drifting clouds, glowing with the warmth of scattered light. At sunset, the horizon burns crimson and gold, while stars slowly emerge, hesitant and veiled. This familiar dance, so woven into human experience, exists only because of atmosphere. Without it, the sky is no longer a companion. It is an abyss. On an airless Earth, there would be no blue sky. Light would not scatter. Colors would not soften. At noon, the sun would hang sharp and white, a blazing orb against a sky as black as velvet. Stars, usually hidden until nightfall, would burn alongside it. Visible even at midday, the moon, when present, would gleam painfully bright, its surface glaring in harsh contrast. Venus and Jupiter, already brilliant, would shine like lanterns. To stand beneath such a sky would be to stand beneath infinity itself, unsoftened, unyielding. Imagine sunrise on this airless Earth. There would be no gradual lightening of the horizon, no wash of pink and orange across clouds. The sun would simply appear, raw and blinding, rising over the horizon like a floodlight turned on in darkness. Sunset would be just as abrupt. The light extinguished in an instant. The world plunged into black. The transitions of day, which humans have long woven into ritual and poetry, would vanish. No dawn chorus of birds, no twilight calm, only the binary rhythm of harsh light and utter dark. And with no air to bend and scatter light, there would be no halos around the sun or moon, no rainbows, no mirages shimmering above hot roads. The atmosphere is a magician of illusions, bending light into arcs and colors. Strip it away, and the magic goes with it. Rainbows vanish because rain cannot fall. Halos disappear because ice cannot drift in air. The optical theater of the sky collapses, leaving only stark geometry, stars, planets, and a merciless sun. The beauty of this bare sky, however, would be overwhelming. Without haze, galaxies would sprawl across the heavens, sharp and luminous. The Milky Way would shine with such clarity that its billions of stars could be traced in fine detail, as though etched upon glass. Nebulae would glow, planets would gleam, and distant galaxies would be visible to the naked eye. Space would no longer be a mystery hidden by blue. It would be ever present, a constant reminder of the infinite. Yet this beauty carries a burden. On Earth today, the blue sky offers comfort, a shield that makes the universe feel distant. Without it, the cosmos presses close, oppressive in its vastness. To live under such a sky would be to feel small at every moment, dwarfed by infinity, with no veil to soften the view. Night would not be restful. It would be overwhelming, filled with piercing starlight that never wavered. Day would not be comforting. It would be alien, with stars staring back even as the sun blazed. Culturally, this would transform human imagination. Our myths and religions have long drawn upon the rhythms of sunrise, sunset, storms, and rainbows. Without atmosphere, those rhythms vanish. No thunder gods, no rainbow bridges, no sky spirits drifting in clouds. Instead, mythology would be born of void and brilliance, of constant stars and unfiltered suns. Perhaps people would imagine the sky as a tapestry of eyes, or as a sea of fires pressing too close. Fear of the heavens might eclipse reverence. Even art would change. Painters today capture sunsets, skies, storms, and rainbows. Poets describe the softness of dawn, the weight of storm clouds, the glow of twilight. In a world without atmosphere, such expressions would not exist. Instead, art would fixate on stark contrasts, blinding white light, endless black space, sharp-edged shadows. Beauty would be drawn from clarity, not color. Humanity's palette itself would be reduced. Mainstream science assures us that our atmosphere is what allows the familiar cycles of light and dark, the comfort of gradual change. Speculation reveals the haunting counterpart, an Earth where the sky offers no transition, only absolutes. It would be magnificent, yes, but also alienating. We would not feel at home beneath such a sky. And perhaps most unsettling of all is the silence. Today, the sky is alive with sound, wind rushing, thunder rolling, rain pattering. Without air, the heavens are mute. Lightning might still flash from storms born of subterranean gas or volcanic discharge, but no thunder would follow. Meteors would still streak, glowing briefly as they strike the ground, but without fiery trails or sonic booms. The drama of the sky would be visual only, stripped of its voice. To imagine this bare sky is to imagine a planet stripped of its soul. The heavens, once dynamic, poetic, alive, would become an infinite void, beautiful, yes, but cruel in its perfection. The absence of atmosphere is not just the loss of air, but the loss of story, sound, and rhythm. As we stand beneath this imagined sky, overwhelmed by stars and silence, one question lingers. What of life? Could any being endure such a world, where the heavens offer no mercy, where light and dark are absolutes, where air itself does not exist? In our world, the sky changes with the seasons. Summer skies blaze with long daylight. Winter nights deepen into prolonged darkness. Spring and autumn bring shifting clouds and colors. Without atmosphere, seasons lose their sky. There would be no gentle arcs of light lengthening or shortening across the year, no rolling clouds announcing change. The tilt of Earth would still exist, but without air, its rhythm would be invisible. The heavens would look the same in July as they did in January, black, sharp, and merciless. The only difference would be the angle of the sun, blazing just as harshly, only higher or lower in its path. Astronomy itself would change. Without haze or distortion, the cosmos would be clearer than any telescope has ever seen. Every night would be perfect for stargazing, though stargazing would no longer be an act of leisure, but of survival, of orientation. Constellations would burn brighter, galaxies more numerous, nebulae visible as faint glowing clouds. Humanity would live not beneath a veil, but under a constant reminder of infinity. Every wanderer, every farmer, every child would know the Milky Way in full detail, its rivers of stars impossible to ignore. But this clarity comes at a cost. Without an atmosphere, time itself would feel different. On Earth today, we mark hours by the shifting quality of light. Dawn's gradual brightening, midday's high sun, twilight's fading glow. These are signals of rhythm, comfort for our minds. Strip them away, and time collapses into a binary state, blazing white day, then instant black night. There is no gradualness, no softness, no warning. Life would move in jolts, not flows, tied to the stark transitions of light and dark. Psychologically, such a sky could weigh heavily. Imagine waking to the raw glare of the sun against black infinity, then sleeping beneath galaxies so sharp they feel like eyes. There would be no rest in the sky, no comfort in clouds drifting lazily, no soothing in rain or snow. The heavens would be vast and oppressive, pressing upon the mind with their endless silence. Humanity might feel small to the point of despair, overwhelmed by exposure. Culture might adapt by turning inward, building underground, avoiding the sight of the sky, treating it not as beauty, but as threat. And yet some would find reverence in it. Poets might describe the Milky Way, not as a band of stars, but as a river of fire. Philosophers might argue that the clarity of the sky reveals truths hidden from those who live under blue. Religions might see the heavens as a constant reminder of gods, or as the unblinking gaze of creation itself. The absence of atmosphere strips away illusion, leaving only raw infinity, and with it, a shift in how humanity perceives itself. Even the measurement of time would alter. Sundials would still work, their shadows sharp and precise, but without the soft diffusion of light, shadows would be harsh, absolute. Night would offer no gradual phases, only stars that rise and fall. The moon, stark and brilliant, would dominate, casting shadows as sharp as daylight. Days and nights would still alternate, but without atmosphere to carry weather, without clouds to mark passing hours. Time would lose its texture. Consider too how human exploration would shift. On our Earth, sailors navigated by stars, but they also rid winds, clouds, and currents. Without atmosphere, only the stars remain, constant and overwhelming. Navigators would have perfect clarity, but nothing else. No winds to fill sails, no storms to warn them, no rains to quench thirst. Humanity's relationship with the heavens would become singular. Stars as the only map, the only clock, the only guide. Mainstream science describes the atmosphere as a lens and a filter, scattering light and shaping views. Speculation shows the opposite. Without it, nothing is hidden, nothing is softened. The sky becomes a mirror of infinity, absolute and relentless. Such a world would produce minds shaped by exposure, cultures molded by void, civilizations obsessed with stars. Perhaps myths would not be of rain gods or thunder spirits, but of eternal watchers, of fires that never dim, of an abyss that never closes its eyes. And yet, for all its beauty, this sky is hostile. It offers no protection, no comfort, no invitation. It is a reminder that the universe is not gentle, that softness is rare, that the blue we know is a miracle. To imagine a world without that miracle is to imagine a planet where the heavens are both magnificent and merciless. As we leave this vision of an alien sky, sharp and infinite, we must return to the ground, for beneath this oppressive firmament, another question lingers. What of life itself? Could any creature endure such a world, where the air is gone, where breath is impossible, where even the simplest survival is stripped away? That is where we journey next, to ask whether life in any form could cling to existence on a breathless earth. Life on Earth has always been bound to air, from the smallest insects to the largest whales, from forests to oceans. Every heartbeat and every leaf depends on atmosphere. Oxygen fuels our cells, carbon dioxide feeds our plants, nitrogen stabilizes the balance of life. Without air, this cycle collapses. On an atmosphereless Earth, the breath of the world vanishes, and with it, almost all familiar life. The first to fall would be creatures of the sea. Without air pressure, the oceans themselves would vanish, boiling into vapor. Fish, whales, plankton, gone in days. Forests would ignite into silence, their trees withering in vacuum, their leaves unable to photosynthesize. Birds, dependent on air for both breath and flight, would never have existed. Insects, reliant on thin channels to carry oxygen, would suffocate instantly. Even humans, so fragile outside their thin layer of sky, would perish in seconds. And yet, life on Earth has always proven stubborn. When conditions turn hostile, it adapts, hides, or endures. This resilience raises a question. If Earth had no atmosphere, could any life remain? The answer may lie in the smallest, most overlooked forms of existence. Consider the microbes. On our world today, bacteria thrive in boiling volcanic vents, in lakes of acid, in frozen ice sheets kilometers thick. Some survive without oxygen, drawing energy from sulfur, iron, or methane. Others endure radiation strong enough to kill any human in moments. A few even resist the vacuum of space itself. Scientists have tested these organisms aboard satellites, exposing them to the void, and found that some endure for weeks or months, shielded by dust or rock. These are the extremophiles, creatures that laugh at limits. In a breathless Earth, life might retreat into the crust, deep below the surface, far from the sun's fury and cosmic radiation. Microbes could linger, feeding on chemical energy. We already know such life exists. Billions of tons of microbial biomass live in Earth's crust, drawing sustenance not from air but from minerals and heat. In our imagined world, this underground biosphere might be the only survivor, clinging stubbornly in darkness while the surface dies. Speculation stretches further. Could entire ecosystems evolve in these hidden realms? Perhaps vast microbial mats, glowing faintly from chemical reactions, could spread through underground lakes. Worm-like creatures, blind and pale, might graze upon them. Predators might emerge, slow and patient, adapted to eternal night. It would not be a world of forests and oceans, but a subterranean web of life, invisible to the surface, a secret Earth within Earth. Life could also endure in fleeting refuges, perhaps in deep polar craters where ice clings eternally. Frozen microbes might persist, waking only when warmth seeps from below. In volcanic vents, shielded by stone, chemotrophic organisms might thrive, indifferent to the vacuum above. These pockets would be fragile, scattered, but they might keep the spark alive. And what of evolution? Given millions of years, could life adapt to a world without breath? If oxygen is gone, organisms might abandon it, building metabolisms based entirely on chemistry. Instead of lungs, they might develop crystal-like structures to capture and store energy from radiation. Instead of photosynthesis, they might evolve radiotrophy, feeding directly on high-energy particles. Already, fungi on Earth's surface have been observed feeding on radiation near Chernobyl. In an airless Earth, could this become the dominant strategy, life turning danger into food? Still, the surface would remain sterile for anything familiar. No forests, no rivers, no animals roaming plains. Without air, the land is naked to radiation, temperature swings, and impacts. Only stone and silence would greet the sun. To imagine life surviving here is to imagine it hidden, beneath, within, never above. And yet, even the absence of air does not erase possibility. Consider the question differently. If life could begin without air, what might it look like? Could Earth, stripped of atmosphere, still have sparked the chemistry of existence? Early life on our own planet arose in oceans, or perhaps in this alternate world, it might begin in deep crustal reservoirs, shielded from vacuum. It might never surface, never see stars, never breathe. Life would be born in darkness, live in darkness, and die in darkness. To such beings, the idea of sky would be unimaginable. Mainstream science tells us life as we know it could not survive without atmosphere. Speculation whispers that life might adapt, retreat, or emerge in forms utterly alien. Perhaps an airless Earth would not be lifeless, but simply unfamiliar, a planet where existence hides beneath, feeding on stone and heat, invisible to the eye. And if such life persisted, what would it dream of? Would it sense the vast empty silence above? Would it reach upward, blindly, toward a world it could never endure? Or would it remain content in its hidden chambers, unaware that a sky even exists? As we imagine these possibilities, one truth grows clear: breath is not the only path to life. There are other ways, darker ways, stranger ways, and perhaps, in the deep silence of a breathless Earth, life would still find a way. If life could endure in hidden pockets of a breathless Earth, what shape might intelligence take? Imagine a species born not under open skies, but within caverns deep beneath the crust. They would never see a sunrise, never know the softness of air, never hear the whisper of wind. Their world would be carved in stone, lit faintly by glowing minerals or microbial mats. To them, the surface would be a myth, an unreachable wasteland ruled by silence and radiation. Their senses would evolve differently. Where we rely on vision, they might depend on vibrations carried through rock or water trapped underground. Hearing, as we know it, would not exist. There is no air to carry sound. Instead, they might listen through touch, through tremors, through chemical signals. Communication could be pulses, flashes, or patterns etched in lightless tunnels. To them, language would not be spoken, but felt. Without atmosphere, there would be no fire. Flames cannot burn without oxygen. Such a civilization would never know candles, torches, or hearths. Their warmth would come from the earth itself. Geothermal heat, volcanic vents, or chemical energy. Their myths might speak not of sky gods, but of stone spirits, of rivers of heat flowing through the crust. What we call technology might develop as structures carved into rock, harnessing minerals and pressure, not smoke or flame. And yet, intelligence, if it arose, might still reach for meaning. We, under a breathable sky, have long looked upward, asking what lies beyond the stars. Beings hidden beneath stone might do the same, not upward, but outward, wondering what lies beyond their caverns. They might sense the radiation above, the cold void pressing on the crust, and weave stories of a hostile outer realm. Perhaps to them, the absence of air would not be absence at all, but a divine mystery, a sacred nothingness that defines existence. Philosophy in such a world would diverge from ours. We ask questions about the heavens, the seasons, the cycle of rain and sun. They would ask about permanence in stone, about the unseen forces that keep their hidden waters warm. Their gods would not ride thunderclouds, but dwell in fissures and magma chambers. Their myths might describe creation as a spark in the dark, life blooming not under skies but under pressure. Mainstream science insists that complex life could never thrive without air, but speculation offers another vision, that intelligence, shaped by different rules, might flourish in secret. It would not build ships to sail seas, nor towers to pierce skies. It would carve, tunnel, endure. Its architecture would cling to rock like coral, its art etched into walls, its stories passed by vibration or gesture. Such a species would be alien to us, but no less real. And what of consciousness itself? We are shaped by our skies, by the rhythm of dawn and dusk, by storms, by winds. Strip those away, and thought takes another path. A mind born in silence might never imagine flight, never dream of clouds. Instead, it might dream of endless caverns, of infinite tunnels weaving through the world. Its infinity would not be upward, but inward, not stars, but depths. The cosmos, to such beings, would not be a sky, but a labyrinth. The contrast with our own humanity is striking. We are creatures of air. We fill our lungs unconsciously, speak with breath, depend on wind and rain. Air defines us, shapes us, comforts us. Without it, we are fragile and brief. The beings of an airless earth would never know this fragility, for they would never depend on breath at all. To them, our way of life, tied to invisible gases, vulnerable to vacuum, would seem impossible, even fantastical. And yet, perhaps there is one common thread. Life in any form clings to survival. It seeks niches, adapts, invents. On Earth today, extremophiles prove that existence can flourish where we once thought impossible. In acid, in ice, in boiling vents, in vacuum itself, life resists. If Earth had no atmosphere, life might not cover the surface, but it might still bloom in darkness. Fragile, hidden, and strange, but alive. This idea reshapes how we view the universe. When astronomers search for life on other worlds, they often look for atmospheres, for water on surfaces, for skies like ours. But if life can survive without breath, hidden underground, then the cosmos may be richer than we imagine. Even barren worlds, airless and silent, might harbor secrets beneath. Mars, the Moon, Europa, Enceladus, all may hide life that does not need sky. So, could anything survive on a breathless Earth? On the surface, no. The sun's fury, the vacuum's silence, the absence of breath would sterilize all we know. But deep below, in secret vaults, in shadows untouched, life might cling. It would not be our life, not forests or oceans, not birds or whales, but it would still be life, patient, hidden, persistent. As we leave this vision of hidden survival, the next question rises. What if it were not microbes or blind creatures alone, but civilizations? What if intelligence itself evolved here, shaping culture and meaning without ever knowing air? What if humans, or something like us, had tried to build lives on a naked earth? That is the story we now turn to, the story of imagination, of cities in silence, of civilizations that might have risen in a world without breath. If humanity had risen on a world without atmosphere, what would civilization look like? Imagine our species, inventive, restless, endlessly adaptive, forced to build not under open skies but in silence, in vacuum, under the shadow of a merciless sun. Every instinct we know would be altered. Every tool, every city, every myth would emerge under alien rules. The first truth is simple. There could be no life on the surface. Without air, lungs collapse, blood boils, breath is impossible. Civilizations, if they formed at all, would retreat underground. Vast caverns would become their cradles, carved from stone, insulated from radiation and extremes. Instead of towers and spires reaching skyward, their architecture would burrow downward, tunnels, chambers, cathedrals of rock. Their skylines would be ceilings of stone, dripping with minerals, glowing with artificial light. Without atmosphere, there is no fire. This alone reshapes everything. Fire is humanity's first tool, the foundation of cooking, warmth, metallurgy. In a vacuum, flames cannot burn. These civilizations would need another source of energy. Perhaps they would harness geothermal heat, tapping the planet's core. Perhaps they would turn to nuclear power, splitting atoms in hidden chambers. Perhaps they would master chemical reactions that release energy without oxygen. Their myths might not speak of Prometheus stealing fire, but of heroes who unlock the heat of Earth itself. Communication, too, would be transformed. On our Earth, voices carry through air. Sound is the heartbeat of culture. Without atmosphere, speech would never exist. These civilizations might use vibrations carried through stone, tapping rhythms along walls, drumming signals across caverns, or they might evolve language through light pulses, glows, patterns of luminescence woven into symbols. Poetry would be written in echoes of rock, in shimmering colors, not in breath or song. And what of agriculture? Without sun and rain, farming could not exist as we know it. These civilizations would grow food in chambers lit by artificial lamps, powered by geothermal or nuclear energy. They might cultivate fungi, bacteria, and subterranean crops adapted to darkness. Fields of wheat under a blue sky would never be imagined. Instead, gardens would glow faintly, strange and pale, tended in silence. Art and culture, too, would diverge. On our Earth, painters capture sunsets, poets praise rain, musicians echo the wind. On a naked Earth, there are no sunsets, no rain, no wind. Art would grow from stone, carvings etched into walls, sculptures of crystal and mineral, patterns of light cast in tunnels. Music, if it existed, would not be sound, but vibration, rhythms felt in the body. Their dances might be silent, their songs unseen, their beauty carved into permanence rather than drifting on the air. Religion would follow. We worship the sky, the sun, the storm. They would worship the depths. Their gods would dwell in magma, in hidden rivers, in the silence of stone. Creation myths would not describe the heavens, but the opening of caverns, the discovery of hidden warmth, the gifts of minerals. The void above, black and merciless, would not be heaven, it would be hell, a realm of death and danger. Salvation would be inward, not upward. Mainstream science assures us that without air, civilizations like ours could never form, but speculation suggests otherwise. Humans are relentless adapters. On this imagined Earth, technology would arise differently, but perhaps with equal brilliance. They would invent suits to step briefly onto the surface, armored against radiation, carrying their own breath. They would mine the barren plains for resources, not with ships and sails, but with sealed machines crawling over silence. Their trade routes would be tunnels, not seas. Their empires would spread beneath, not above. And yet, despite all differences, some patterns would remain familiar. They would build communities. They would tell stories. They would seek meaning. Families would gather in the glow of artificial lamps, children would play in caverns, elders would pass on myths of stone and heat. Civilizations would rise and fall, not under skies, but under ceilings of rock. History would still exist, only its stage would be underground. The most haunting thought is this: such civilizations would never know the sky, the stars, the sun, the moon, the colors of dawn. All of these would be foreign. If an explorer ever stepped to the surface and saw infinity above, it might be overwhelming, terrifying, even holy. The sight of galaxies unfiltered would be too much for a people who had lived in stone. Perhaps entire religions would be born from a single glimpse of the heavens. Civilizations on a naked Earth would be resilient, imaginative, alien to us, and yet, in their persistence, deeply human. They would remind us that life does not end with loss. It adapts, invents, and endures, even in silence, even in darkness, even without breath. As we imagine their world, carved in stone, glowing faintly in endless night, one question emerges: would they be alone, or would they look outward, beyond caverns, beyond their planet, and wonder as we do if other Earths exist? In such a world, technology would not be a luxury, but survival itself. To live without atmosphere means building an environment from nothing. Imagine massive caverns transformed into domed cities, their ceilings lined with artificial lights simulating day and night. Great pumps would cycle gases, creating a breathable pocket of air sustained by machines. Entire civilizations would live inside what we might call colossal life support systems, humming endlessly, their maintenance more sacred than any temple. Surface expeditions would be rare and dangerous. Humans in pressurized suits would emerge briefly into the raw glare of the sun, their visors shielding them from ultraviolet fury. Vehicles, airtight and sealed, would crawl across deserts of salt and stone, collecting minerals, drilling for resources. Each journey would carry risk, for one crack in a suit, one failure in pressure, means death within seconds. The surface would not be a place of settlement, but of harvest, a realm visited, not lived in. Political structures would evolve differently, shaped by dependence on infrastructure. Power would rest with those who controlled the oxygen pumps, the geothermal reactors, the sealed farms. Leaders might be engineers, priests of machinery, guardians of the breath that sustains the people. Wars would not be fought for land, but for caverns deep enough to house communities, for tunnels rich in minerals, for access to the hidden veins of warmth that keep life alive. Culture would grow around this fragility. Festivals might celebrate the turning of great machines, or the discovery of new caverns. Myths might speak of an ancient catastrophe, the moment the earth was born without sky, cursed to silence, leaving humans to carve refuge within its body. Generations raised in darkness would never miss the sky, for they would never know it. Their art would glow in phosphorescent murals, their songs would be felt through vibrations, their dances performed in low-gravity chambers to mimic the flight they never had. And yet, psychology would bear the weight of confinement, to live always underground, never seeing the horizon, never breathing open air, would shape the mind in profound ways. Anxiety might not come from heights or storms, but from silence, from the ever-present fear of machines failing, of oxygen thinning, of walls cracking. Children would grow up taught that the surface is death, that the void above is merciless, and yet curiosity would remain. Brave explorers, dreamers, and outcasts would always press upward, seeking glimpses of the forbidden sky. When they stepped onto the surface and saw it, black heavens glittering with galaxies, sun like a white furnace, a moon blazing stark, they would be changed. Some might call it holy, the realm of gods. Others might call it punishment, the endless void pressing close. To them, the stars would not be distant companions, but terrifying witnesses, always watching, always present. Technology would eventually allow longer stays. Domes might be built on the surface, sealed and pressurized, their walls thick against radiation. From within, people could look outward and see the cosmos in its raw truth. Astronomy would advance rapidly, for the sky is clearer than ours could ever be. Telescopes would peer deeper, revealing galaxies in astonishing detail. Yet this knowledge would always carry unease, the reminder that they live in defiance of a universe that offers them no natural shelter. Speculation invites us to imagine how such civilizations might view themselves. Would they see their existence as fragile, clinging to a hostile planet, or would they see it as triumph, proof of their ingenuity, of their ability to carve life where none should exist? Perhaps pride would grow, not from soaring towers, but from survival itself. We live, their monuments might proclaim, and in living, we conquer the void. Over centuries, their societies might split. Some would embrace the caverns, preferring safety, tradition, the comfort of stone. Others would push outward, building sealed colonies on the surface, daring to live under the raw stars. Conflicts would arise, philosophies would clash. Is it better to remain hidden in safety, or to face the merciless heavens directly? Entire cultural movements might form around this question, shaping art, politics, and faith. For all these differences, though, one truth would remain. They would still be human. They would love, mourn, celebrate, and dream. They would invent, create, and wonder. They would tell stories of their origins, stories of survival, stories of destiny. Even without air, without sky, without breath, humanity would find a way to write itself into the universe. And perhaps the most haunting thought is this: what if such civilizations already exist? What if, on another airless Earth orbiting another star, beings live in caverns, building their lives in silence, fearing the void above? What if we are not unique, but one version of a greater pattern, life inventing ways to endure where endurance seems impossible? As we leave this vision of humanity on a naked Earth, we carry the echoes of their resilience. Civilizations would not end with the loss of air. They would simply transform, adapting to silence, inventing breath, creating meaning in darkness. They would endure, as humans always do, and so we turn outward, from imagination to speculation, from our Earth to others. For if such civilizations could rise here, in silence and shadow, might they not also rise elsewhere, on other planets, in other galaxies, in parallel realities we have not yet seen? When we imagine Earth without an atmosphere, it feels alien, surreal, almost unthinkable. Yet in the universe beyond our skies, such worlds are not rare. They are common. For every Earth wrapped in a fragile veil of gases, there are dozens, perhaps hundreds of barren rocks, drifting in silence, exposed to the void. Our imagined Earth is not only a thought experiment, it is a parallel reality already written across the stars. Consider Mercury, the closest planet to the Sun. It is nearly the same size as our Moon, and like our Moon, it carries no atmosphere. Its days blaze at 400 degrees Celsius. Its nights freeze to 70 Fahrenheit. Its surface is a scarred record of cosmic bombardment, untouched by air or weather. Mercury is what Earth might have been, a stone warmed and frozen in endless cycles, silent beneath a black sky. The Moon itself provides another mirror. Step onto its surface, and you find a place almost identical to our imagined Earth. Sharp shadows, brilliant stars at noon, silence so complete that footsteps fall into nothing. Dust lingers unmoved for millions of years. Craters remain sharp, for no rain or wind ever softens them. The Moon is our closest vision of Earth, without air, a reminder that the difference between familiar and alien can be as thin as a veil of gases beyond our solar system. The story continues. Astronomers have discovered thousands of exoplanets, many rocky worlds, orbiting stars like our own. Some of these are Earth-sized but barren, stripped of atmosphere by solar wind. Others orbit too close to their stars, their air boiled away, their surfaces scorched. Some drift freely between stars, ejected from their systems, frozen and naked in eternal night. Each of these is a version of Earth that never kept its sky. Speculation stretches further. What if, among these countless worlds, there are Earth-like twins planets with oceans and continents, but no atmosphere to hold them? From space they might look hauntingly familiar. Blue at first, then fading as water escapes, leaving behind brown scars. Alien astronomers, peering through telescopes, might mistake them for Earth in its earliest days, or perhaps Earth in some forgotten future. Mainstream science views these airless Earths as lifeless, barren, sterile, but speculation whispers differently. If microbes can survive in Earth's crust, shielded from vacuum, could they not do the same elsewhere? On Mars, deep underground, pockets of water may still exist. On Europa, beneath its icy shell, oceans endure without air. Above, could life not flourish in these refuges? Even if the skies are silent, the absence of atmosphere does not mean the absence of possibility. The universe may be full of such hidden Edens, worlds that to our eyes seem dead, but beneath their surfaces carry the spark of existence. Perhaps civilizations too could emerge there as we imagined for a naked Earth. Cavern cities lit by geothermal light, cultures that never saw a sky, beings who navigate by vibration and chemical sense rather than air and sound. To them, Earth with its atmosphere would seem impossibly exotic, a paradise of breath they could hardly imagine. And what if the parallel runs deeper still? Imagine alternate Earths where atmospheres once existed, then were lost, oceans boiled away, forests withered, civilizations ended, ruins might remain, sealed vaults, abandoned tunnels, artifacts buried in dust. To discover such a world would be to look into our own potential future, a mirror of what could happen if our fragile veil were ever stripped. These parallel Earths would not only be curiosities, but warnings. The idea of parallel realities extends beyond physical planets. Physics itself suggests that in a multiverse, every possibility may exist. If so, there could be countless versions of Earth, some with thick atmospheres like Venus, some with none at all, some with skies of methane or hydrogen, others with exotic chemistries unknown to us. Our Earth, wrapped in nitrogen and oxygen, might be only one thread in a vast tapestry of possibility. To imagine these alternate Earths is to feel both awe and humility. The conditions that allow us to breathe are not inevitable. They are rare, fragile, and precious. Each parallel world, stripped of air, reminds us of how narrow the window of habitability truly is. And yet, each also invites wonder. If life can adapt, if civilizations can endure in silence, then perhaps we are not alone, even among the barren stones of the galaxy. As we gaze into this possibility, one question grows sharper. If atmospheres can vanish so easily, could they also be created? Could barren Earths be reborn as living ones? Could we or some future civilization take these parallel worlds and breathe skies into them? Astronomers today search the skies not only for planets with atmospheres, but for those without them. Telescopes tuned to measure starlight can reveal whether a planet's sky holds gases, or whether its light passes cleanly, stripped of haze. In some cases, we have already identified barren twins, rocky worlds orbiting close to their stars, atmospheres boiled away by radiation. These are the silent parallels of Earth, reminders that what we take for granted is not guaranteed elsewhere. From space, such planets appear stark. No cloud bands swirl across their surfaces. No storms churn. No blues or whites soften their appearance. They gleam with the raw reflection of stone and ice, unbroken by movement. They are beautiful in their stillness, haunting in their silence. For scientists, they are puzzles. For poets, they are mirrors of possibility. Earth as it might have been, Earth as it could still become. Philosophically, these airless Earths provoke deep questions. If countless planets exist where no atmosphere formed, does that make our own sky a rare treasure? Or does it suggest that among the billions of worlds, many more carry air hidden from our sight? In either case, the thought is humbling. Our fragile cocoon is not permanent. It is an exception in a cosmos where silence and vacuum dominate. Speculation brings darker reflections. What if some of these barren planets once carried air and life? Perhaps atmospheres can be lost suddenly, stripped by cosmic impacts or solar flares. Perhaps civilizations once thrived, only to watch their skies vanish, their oceans boil, their homes fall silent. What ruins might linger in those worlds? Sealed vaults, long abandoned, machines buried in dust, records etched in stone. To stumble upon such a planet would be to confront our own fragility, to see in another's fate the echo of our possible end. And then there is the question of perception. To us, airless planets seem hostile, lifeless, dead. But for beings born in caverns, as we imagined in the previous section, such a world would not be cursed, but natural. To them, Earth with its open skies would seem incomprehensible, perhaps even terrifying. Our paradise might be their nightmare, just as their darkness would be ours. In this way, parallel Earths do not merely reflect physical possibility, they reflect a vast diversity of perspective. The search for these worlds is more than scientific, it is existential. Each discovery teaches us something about the conditions of life, about the rarity of habitability, about the balance we depend upon. When astronomers detect a planet with no air, they are not only cataloging another rock, they are mapping the boundaries of possibility, sketching the outlines of the fragile window that allows us to exist. Speculation stretches beyond observation. Some thinkers suggest that in a multiverse, every possible version of Earth exists, some barren, some lush, some choked in toxic clouds, some with skies of methane or hydrogen. If so, then there are infinite Earths, some where civilizations endure underground, some where oceans froze solid, some where no life ever stirred. Our Earth, with its thin blue veil, is only one thread in this infinite tapestry. For humanity, these reflections are more than curiosity. They remind us of responsibility. Our atmosphere sustains us, but it can also be altered by climate, by catastrophe, by human action. To know that countless Earths exist without air is to recognize the precariousness of our own. We are not guaranteed a sky. We are only borrowing it, tending it for a brief moment in cosmic time. And so, the question arises, must we accept the fate of barren worlds? Or could we change it? Could atmospheres be restored to planets that lost them? Could we, with enough knowledge, breathe new skies into airless stones? Mars tempts us with this question, a world that once carried rivers and lakes, now dry and thin. If we could give it air, could we not do the same for others? As we leave these reflections on parallel Earths, the path ahead grows clear. We have wandered through worlds, stripped bare, imagined civilizations in caverns, and seen mirrors of our own fragility across the stars. Now, it is time to ask the next question. Not only what is lost, but what might be built. Could atmospheres be engineered? Could barren planets be transformed? Could silence be given breath once more? That is where we journey next, to stand at the border between science and speculation, and to imagine whether humans might one day become the architects of skies. When we imagine a barren Earth, stripped of its atmosphere, one question rises naturally. Could it ever be restored? Could humanity, armed with knowledge and will, breathe life back into a dead sky? Science offers hints, speculation stretches possibilities, and together they form a tapestry of wonder and caution. In mainstream science, this idea belongs to the field of terraforming, the deliberate transformation of a planet to make it habitable. The most famous candidate is Mars, a world that once carried rivers and seas but now wears only a thin veil of carbon dioxide. If we could thicken its sky, warm its surface, and bring water back to its basins, Mars might once again resemble a living world, but the challenges are staggering. The first barrier is gravity. A planet must be large enough to hold on to gases. Earth, with its mass, clings tightly to nitrogen and oxygen. Mars, smaller, cannot. Its air has leaked away for billions of years. To engineer an atmosphere, there would require constant renewal, vast machines releasing gases, factories pumping air that might never stay. On a smaller world, atmosphere is not permanent. It is an endless task. Another barrier is magnetism. Earth's magnetic field shields us from solar winds, which otherwise strip air away. Mars lacks this shield. Even if we gave it a sky, the sun would slowly tear it off again. To truly terraform such a planet, we would need not only air, but also protection, perhaps an artificial magnetic field, a vast shield in space to deflect the storm. The scale is beyond anything humanity has yet attempted, yet speculation dares to imagine ways forward. What if orbital mirrors could focus sunlight, warming a frozen world until buried carbon dioxide sublimates, thickening the air? What if comets rich in ice could be redirected to crash upon a planet, delivering both water and gases? What if vast industries could vent greenhouse gases, building a temporary veil until more stable cycles take over? Each idea carries risk, cost, and centuries of labor, but each reminds us that atmospheres are not fixed. They can be changed. On Earth itself, we see this truth already. Human activity is altering our sky, carbon dioxide rising, ozone once thinning, climate shifting. Inadvertently, we are terraforming our own home. The lesson is sobering. If we can change our air by accident, could we not one day change another's by design? Speculation stretches further. Could we invent machines to generate air directly, vast engines breaking rock apart, pulling oxygen and nitrogen from minerals, releasing them into the void? Could self-replicating factories crawl across a planet, slowly exhaling breath until a sky forms? Perhaps nanotechnology could scatter across dust, each particle a tiny worker, weaving molecules into a new shield. To us, these ideas sound like science fiction. To some future civilization, they may be tools as ordinary as dams or bridges. Yet questions remain. Even if we could build an atmosphere, could we keep it stable? Air is not only molecules, it is a system on Earth. Cycles of carbon, water, and life keep the balance. Forests breathe oxygen, oceans absorb carbon dioxide, volcanoes vent, winds stir. Without these cycles, air becomes static, unstable, prone to collapse. Terraforming would not only mean creating a sky, but also maintaining it with artificial or biological loops. In effect, we would not just build air, we would need to build a living planet. The ethical dimension cannot be ignored. If we change a planet, do we destroy what was already there? Mars may yet carry hidden microbes. Europa may harbor oceans of alien life. To overwrite these with our own skies might be conquest, not creation. Some argue that we should not terraform, but instead adapt ourselves, engineer humanity to survive without air rather than forcing planets to carry it, which is more just to change the world or to change ourselves. Still, the vision of engineering skies holds us captive, to stand on a barren world, once silent, and feel wind rise across it for the first time, to watch clouds form where none had ever drifted, to breathe air where once there was only vacuum. Such moments would be as profound as the first step onto the moon. It would mark humanity not only as explorers, but as creators. Mainstream science tells us the challenges are enormous, perhaps impossible with our present means. Speculation whispers that impossibility today may be inevitability tomorrow. For if we are a species that dreams of stars, then surely we are also a species that dreams of skies. As we hold this thought, another question follows. If atmospheres can be engineered, are we not already their engineers on Earth? If skies can be made, they can also be lost. Our fragile balance is both blueprint and warning, a reminder that to build an atmosphere is to shoulder responsibility as vast as the heavens. If the practical science of terraforming feels overwhelming, speculation opens doors even wider. What if, instead of restoring atmospheres planet-wide, we built local skies? Picture vast domes covering entire cities, each dome holding pressure and oxygen within. Inside, clouds could form, rain could fall, winds could stir. Outside, the world would remain barren, but under the dome, life would bloom. Humanity might live not on a planet's surface, but in scattered islands of air, each dome a miniature Earth. Extend this further and imagine orbital habitats, colossal rings or spheres built in space, their interiors spinning to mimic gravity, their walls holding in air. In such worlds, atmosphere is not a gift of geology, but a work of architecture. Humanity would no longer depend on planets at all. We would carry our skies with us. The great dream of Dyson spheres and O'Neill's cylinders is not merely about energy or expansion. It is about atmosphere. It is about creating the breath we need wherever we go. On a smaller scale, technology might allow portable atmospheres. Sealed suits already let us walk on the moon. But what if future materials enabled suits that create air endlessly, recycling molecules, filtering radiation, making each human a self-contained biosphere? In this vision, atmosphere is no longer planetary. It is personal. Every traveler carries their own sky, their own breath, their own invisible world. But such ideas lead to deeper questions. If we can create atmospheres anywhere, what does it mean to be Earth-like? Are we still children of this planet, or do we become something else entirely? Engineers of worlds, creators of skies? To breathe is no longer to depend, but to invent. Civilization itself would shift, for survival would rest not in nature, but in machines, not in balance, but in construction. Would we still see air as sacred, or would we treat it as a tool, like stone or fire? Philosophers might warn of hubris. To create a sky is to step into the role of gods. Myths across cultures describe deities shaping heavens, separating waters, breathing life into clay. What happens when humans take this role for themselves? Do we become caretakers or conquerors? Do we honor the fragility of what we build? Or do we risk repeating mistakes, turning paradise into desert again? Mainstream science reminds us that even here on Earth, we are already atmosphere makers. Carbon dioxide rises with every machine we run. Ozone holes form and heal. Temperatures shift. Climate change is in its essence an accidental terraforming. It proves that humans can change skies, not with intention, but with carelessness. The lesson is sharp. If we can harm our atmosphere without meaning to, then creating one elsewhere will demand wisdom beyond technology. Speculation suggests hope. Imagine arriving on Mars centuries from now. Once it was barren, its air too thin, its water locked in ice. But now, oceans ripple where none existed. Winds whisper across plains. Rains fall on red deserts turned green. The atmosphere was engineered, molecule by molecule, until the planet lived again. To breathe on such a world without a suit, to stand beneath a sky humans made, would be to stand at the border between science and myth. It would be the moment humanity proved itself not only survivor, but creator. Yet perhaps the truest act of engineering is not outward, but inward. Perhaps we should not seek to build atmospheres elsewhere, but to protect the one we already have. Earth's sky is not infinite. It is fragile, a thin veil between life and silence. Every breath we take is evidence of balance, of cycles billions of years in the making. If we dream of creating new skies, we must first learn to cherish our own. In the end, the idea of engineering atmospheres is more than science fiction. It is a mirror. It shows us what is possible, yes, but it also shows us who we are. A species that breathes not only air, but imagination. A species that looks at barren stones and wonders not just what is, but what could be. And so, as we leave this speculation, one thought lingers. Perhaps the question is not whether we can build atmospheres, but whether we should. For in doing so, we carry the weight of creation itself. Next, we return to Earth to draw lessons from this breathless vision. What can our fragile sky teach us about balance, about survival, about the future? What warnings echo from imagining a world without air? For as long as humans have existed, the sky has been our canvas of meaning. The blue dome above has not merely been atmosphere, it has been sanctuary, mystery, and stage. We looked upward and saw gods, storms, birds in flight, and the slow dance of stars. We measured time by the arc of the sun, traced destiny in the constellations, and carried our prayers into the winds. The sky to us has always been alive, but what if there had never been a sky? What if, from the very beginning, Earth was airless, the heavens forever black? So what if no clouds ever gathered, no storms ever rumbled, no rainbows ever arched? Imagine how myth and culture, the very heartbeat of humanity, would have been reshaped. On our Earth, thunder has long been the voice of gods. Zeus hurled lightning, Thor wielded a hammer that shook the heavens. Indra rode storms into battle. These myths arose because we lived beneath air that roared and flashed. But in a world without atmosphere, there would be no thunder, no lightning splitting the sky. Storm gods would never exist. Instead, humanity might worship silence itself, or the distant, unchanging star. Deities would not descend from clouds, but dwell in the cold brilliance of galaxies, remote and eternal. The sun, too, would take on a different role. On our Earth, it rises gently, its light scattered into hues of gold and crimson. It warms gradually, sinks softly, painting the horizon with fire. Without atmosphere, dawn and dusk vanish. The sun appears suddenly, merciless and white, then disappears just as abruptly. To early humans, such harshness might feel like divine judgment. The sun would not be seen as nurturer, but as executioner, a god of fire whose gaze could not be endured. Worship might turn to avoidance, to rituals of hiding when the white furnace climbs the horizon. And what of the night? On our Earth, the sky is a veil. Stars pierce it faintly, their brilliance softened by haze. We marvel at constellations, but they arrive gently, with twilight's slow unveiling. In an airless world, stars blaze at all hours, even at noon. Galaxies sprawl with overwhelming clarity, Nebulae glow visible to the naked eye. Planets shine like beacons. The heavens are not hidden, not gradual, but constant. For humans, this would not be comfort. It would be weight. Mythologies might describe the sky as an infinite tapestry of eyes, watching, judging, pressing down. To live under such a sky would be to feel exposed at every moment, as though the universe itself was staring back. Rainbows, too, would never be imagined. No droplets to scatter light. No arcs of color bridging storms. Cultures across our Earth saw rainbows as bridges between worlds. Iris carrying messages from gods, Bifrost connecting mortals to Asgard. In a breathless world, such symbols could never arise. Without rain or light-bending mist, bridges would be imagined differently, perhaps tunnels of crystal beneath the ground, or rivers of fire flowing from the sun. Prayers would change as well. On Earth, we lift our voices upward, imagining them carried by winds, rising through clouds to reach divine ears. In a vacuum, prayers rise into nothing. They do not travel, they do not echo, they vanish, silent, into the void. Religious rituals might instead turn inward, downward, toward the earth itself. Gods might be seen as dwelling in stone, in magma, in the hidden warmth beneath. The divine would not be above, but within, the opposite of our own mythic traditions. Mainstream history tells us that culture is shaped by environments. Storms inspired storm gods, rivers inspired fertility myths, the sky inspired astronomy. In an airless earth, none of these exist. Culture would be carved from silence and stone, myths from void and fire. Civilization's imagination would bend not toward flight and rain and clouds, but toward endurance in shadow. And yet, there is a haunting thought. If one day, after ages of life beneath black skies, someone were to discover air, to create a bubble of atmosphere, what would they think? To see a patch of blue, a scattering of clouds, a rainbow forming in droplets. It would be revelation. Myths would be born in that instant. Entire religions built upon the miracle of color and sound in a world that had never known them. The blue sky we take for granted would be seen as paradise, the very definition of heaven. Speculation suggests that even on a breathless earth, humans would still reach upward with imagination. The sky might not be alive, but it would still be infinite, still a mystery. Instead of constellations drawn in faint dots, they would trace entire galaxies with naked eyes, weaving stories across spirals of stars. Their myths might be grander, their gods farther, their dreams vaster, for the universe would not be hidden, but fully revealed. And yet such clarity comes with cost. Without clouds, without storms, without rainbows, culture would lose its softness, its gentleness. Rituals would not celebrate fertility of rain, but the endurance of stone. Poems would not describe sunsets, but silence. Songs would not echo in air, but in the bones of the earth. Humanity would still find meaning, but it would be meaning of another kind, sharp, cold, eternal. To imagine this is to realize how deeply atmosphere has shaped our culture. Every hymn to the sky, every myth of thunder, every prayer carried by wind is born from the gift of air. Without it, our stories would be different, our gods unfamiliar, our imaginations drawn not to the heavens above, but to the void that surrounds us. And so when we reflect on myths of Zeus and Thor, Iris and Bifrost, rain gods and storm spirits, we glimpse not only our history, but our fragility. These myths exist because our sky exists. Remove the atmosphere, and entire pantheons vanish. What remains is a humanity still seeking wonder, but forced to carve it from silence, from black heavens, from galaxies that never dim. The sky has always been our calendar. On Earth, as we know it, seasons are marked by the angle of the sun, the colors of dawn, the length of twilight. Farmers once looked to the clouds to read the coming of rain. Sailors studied the heavens to chart voyages. Festivals unfolded with solstices and equinoxes. Without an atmosphere, none of these patterns would exist. There would be no drifting clouds to signal storms, no painted sunsets to announce harvest, no gentle glow of dawn to guide ritual. Time itself would feel harsher. divided only into two absolutes, searing white day and instant black night. Civilizations on such a world would shape their calendars, not by sky, but by stone. Perhaps they would measure the rhythm of geothermal vents or the cycles of underground heat. Festivals might be tied not to seasons, but to cosmic events, eclipses, planetary alignments, the rise and fall of galaxies, visible always above. Instead of gathering under midsummer skies, they might gather in caverns, marking the endless silence with rituals of endurance. The beauty of weather, of snow, of rain, of thunder would never enter their traditions. The absence of air would carve an absence in culture. Art would change most profoundly. Much of our creativity is born from the shifting drama of the heavens. Paintings of clouds, poems of sunsets, songs about rain. Without these, art would turn inward. Walls of caverns would become canvases, etched with glowing minerals. Sculptures would be carved from stone, illuminated by artificial lights. Music, instead of voices carried by air, might emerge from vibrations felt through the body, or rhythms tapped into the ground. Poetry might speak not of skies, but of silence, of stars that never fade, of shadows unbroken by cloud or mist. Humanity would still create beauty, but it would be colder, sharper, more eternal. Philosophy, too, would take another path. On Earth, thinkers have long looked upward and pondered the infinite. Plato saw the heavens as perfect. Aristotle charted celestial spheres. Countless cultures found divine order in the stars. But in an airless world, the infinite is always present, overwhelming, impossible to ignore. There is no veil, no blue comfort to soften the cosmos. To live under such a sky would be to feel small at every moment, pressed upon by endless galaxies. Philosophies might not ask, what is beyond, but instead, how do we endure beneath infinity? The weight of existence would not be hidden by atmosphere. It would be relentless. Speculation adds another haunting reflection. What if humanity once had a sky and then lost it? Imagine a civilization like ours, built beneath blue heavens, shaping myths of rainbows, festivals of harvest, prayers carried by wind, then catastrophe. The atmosphere stripped away, leaving only silence. How would memory of the sky linger? Would poets write of colors no one could see anymore, sunsets lost to history? Would children hear stories of thunder they would never hear, rain they would never feel, clouds they would never see? A civilization might carry nostalgia for a sky it could no longer touch, treating the memory of air as a sacred treasure. Temples might hold murals of blue, holy relics from an age of breath. To lose the sky after having it would be more tragic than never knowing it at all. Mainstream anthropology shows us that culture is deeply shaped by environment. Deserts birth one set of myth, forests another, seas another. Still, so too would the absence of atmosphere shape an entirely alien cultural arc. Without clouds, there are no rain dances. Without wind, there are no storm gods. Without twilight, there are no poems of dusk. Instead, cultures would speak of stone, of silence, of radiation, of stars that never hide. Their gods would dwell not above, but below. Their festivals would honor survival, not renewal. Their myths would be born not of cycles of rain and sun, but of permanence and void. And yet, even in this stark vision, one truth remains. Humans are storytellers. We invent meaning, whether under blue skies or black voids. Even in silence, we would create myths. Even without clouds, we would dream of bridges between worlds. Even without thunder, we would find voices in stone. Culture is not erased by absence. It transforms. The breathless earth would still sing. Its songs would simply be different. In reflecting on this, we return to our own skies with new reverence. The next time clouds gather, remember that in another reality, no such beauty exists. The next time thunder rolls, recall that in a breathless world, silence would follow lightning. The next time you see a rainbow, remember that it is not inevitable. It is a miracle, born from air and light, fragile and fleeting. A world where prayers rise into a vacuum, is not lifeless, but it is alien. Its myths, its gods, its art would be carved from stone and silence, not air and cloud. To imagine it is to glimpse how deeply atmosphere has shaped us, not only our survival, but our stories, our symbols, our souls. And so, as we leave these cultural reflections, we carry a final lesson. Atmosphere is not just physics, it is memory, myth, imagination. Without it, humanity itself would have been different. With it, we are what we are. Next, we step into those lessons more directly, asking, what warnings, what wisdom can we draw from imagining a world without breath? As our journey draws to a close, let us return to something simple, the breath you are taking right now. Invisible, effortless, so constant you hardly notice it. Yet this breath is a miracle. It exists only because our planet wears a fragile veil of gases, a shield no thicker on the scale of Earth than the skin of an apple. That thin skin is the reason rivers flow, forests rise, clouds gather, and life endures. Without it, Earth would be silent, airless, and bare, a stone adrift in the dark. We have wandered tonight through visions of what our world might be without atmosphere. Oceans boiled away, skies black at noon, civilizations forced to hide beneath stone. We have seen how myths and prayers would change, how cultures would reshape themselves in silence, how even life itself might retreat into darkness. And through all of it, one truth has grown clearer. The air we breathe is not inevitable. It is fragile, precious, and rare. Science reminds us that atmospheres are not permanent. They can be stripped by solar winds, boiled away by heat, or altered by carelessness. Speculation reminds us of possibility, that perhaps one day humanity could build skies on barren worlds, could create atmospheres where none existed. But here now, on Earth, we live within a sky already given. It is both shield and gift, holding us close against the vast indifference of the cosmos. Think of the luck, if you wish to call it that. Out of all the rocks and spheres that circle stars, we live on the one wrapped in breath. Out of all the possibilities, we were born on the world with a sky. It is cosmic fortune, chance, mystery, and it is ours to honor. So as you listen now, wherever you may be, in a quiet room, in bed drifting toward rest, on a journey beneath your own stars, pause for a moment. Imagine the sky above you, blue by day, scattered with stars by night, alive with clouds and storms and rainbows. Imagine it gone, as we have done tonight, and then let the contrast remind you of its wonder. If you feel moved, I invite you gently to share your thoughts, perhaps in a comment, perhaps in a quiet reflection to yourself. What does your sky mean to you? What memory, what story, what dream do you carry beneath it? Each voice adds to the circle of listeners across the world. Each gaze beneath the heavens becomes part of a shared memory. And now, as we close, let the thought settle softly. Earth is wrapped in its invisible shield, delicate yet enduring, fragile yet strong. It cradles us against silence, warms us against cold, protects us against fire. With every breath, you are touching that mystery. With every moment, you are held in its embrace. May that thought bring you calm, may it bring you wonder, and may it carry you gently into sleep.